here we are. Welcome to our very first parent informative session. This evening's focus is going to be on how, as parents, caregivers, advocates, aunties, uncles, whomever you may be, whatever role you may be in, how you can best support your young person at home. So strategies and resources to support their well-being, social, emotional well-being. We all have mental health, right? Everybody has it. Good, ups and downs, we get through it, just like we have physical health. And so we wanted to present this information to you in this manner based on a parent survey we did district-wide, and mental health being the number one, the top priority of parents who responded. So a lot of focus of today is the social, emotional well-being of our young people. You all are taking care of it at home. How can we support you in that endeavor? We're supporting our students in the classroom. How can we partner together to support our students? Because we all want academic success for our students. And we can't achieve that if their social, emotional well-being isn't being met. So I hope today or this evening you walk away with at least one strategy, one resource that you can take back with you to help you in your household, that will hopefully help your child and help them come back into the classroom to be successful. So thank you for being here. Really, truly honored that you're here this evening. I'm grateful that you're here. Myself, my team, our superintendent, our presenters, we're super excited for this to finally come to fruition. We've talked about this. I've even, had dreams about it happening, but it's really here. So introductions, our presenters this evening, we have Dr. Joe Whalen. Wave your hand, Doc. Doc, clinical psychologist. He primarily works over at our high school. Then we have Ann Lyons. She is providing counseling for all of Center Joint Unified School District, 1st through 12th grade in the Educationally Related Mental Health Services Program. She has an MA in psychology, MS in school counseling. She's even taught 8 years of teaching in California, Idaho, and Indonesia. And then Maria Turner Yolveres, welcome. Previous teacher, school counselor for 8 years. She also runs her private practice. She's a licensed clinical social worker. Thank you all for being here and putting in the hard work to present this information. A lot of people said, how can you guys do this in just an hour and a half? They're going to do their darndest. They're going to hit it home. I also want to thank my staff, the Family Resource Center. They've been amazing. They've greeted you, got the food. I also like to thank Tammy Jabali, who's in the back. She's helping out with childcare, even though she's not there right now, but she's going to head back over. She has 2 high school students helping out over there to work with her kiddos. So thank you all for that. Also our custodian, Hermie, who does an amazing job over here. So thank her also. I didn't introduce myself. Ryan Miranda, coordinator at Family Resource Center under the Student Services umbrella. So I run several programs. Our Students and Families in Transitions, it's our homeless education program, foster youth services, bullying prevention, community health resources, a plethora of things. So that is me. And without further ado, I want to introduce our superintendent, Scott Blair. So welcome, Scott. Give us a few words.
And we want to get right to the meat, and I was talking with these 3 individuals before because the reason we're here is to hear from them, not from all of us. But I do have to thank Ryan and his staff, Tammy, for everyone for putting this together, because I think when Ryan came on 2 years ago, Ryan came, I said, I want to meet with you, Ryan. So I brought him over to my office, and Ryan was like, oh, what did I do wrong? I mean, I'm scared. I'm like, no, Ryan, I've got a challenge for you. I said, one of the things that we want to do in our district is partner with our families, because we know today education is not just show up at school, do your thing, and then go back home. We want to partner because we figure if we're all working together for the same cause, for the same reason, to have our students grow and learn, we're going to be in a better place. So I said to Ryan, let's get something going. So I gave him a little break the first year, and then I started this summer. I said, Ryan, I'd love to see a survey. And all of a sudden, he had a survey out. Next thing I know, he's like, Scott, I have this date set up. We're going to have this training. And then I thought, okay, we'll run with it. We put it all out there. It was great. And then he called me and said, how big can the room be? And I thought, wow, that's great. So we got great feedback. So I want to thank all of you for being here and partnering with us in this. Because when we put the survey out, the first thing we heard back was the topic we're going to talk about tonight. I'm a parent of 2 boys also in high school, and I was just telling these folks right here, it is so much more difficult than I imagined. I thought, oh, when they're growing up little, it's all great. The pressures, the social media, all those things that they're dealing with, it is so impactful. And so I'm going to actually hang around tonight as a parent to actually hear what they have to offer as well, because I think, again, we can continue to learn from each other and only do better and right for our kids, for our students. So I'm not going to say anything else because I'd rather hear from these guys. So I'll turn it back to Ryan, and then we'll hear from the experts.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming. This is a very short time to try and cover a lot of stuff. So we're actually not going to cover everything once in an hour and a half. I'm sure that won't happen. We come from very different ages in the room. And thank you for entering questions on the email you sent back, the survey. And because there's quite a broad range of different sorts of issues. So I hope to do tonight is I think we all hope to kind of give you a little information, start some things, have follow-up meetings, follow-up conversations. If you want, I'm at the high school. If you need to talk to me, you don't have to remember my name. You say the psychologist at the high school. I'm the only one there. So you can always reach me that way. Okay. So I just threw something on, and I'm also have to be done in 20 minutes or I get in trouble. Okay. So this is just something about stress. That stress can be big, stress can be small. What I'm going to be talking about is when it continues over time, which is what they're talking about. Can I touch your water? Okay, not bad. Look at I'm all strong. Hold this for half hour. It's going to wear me out. So one of the things that's important to deal with stress is not carried all the time. Summers are great times, right? Kids' stress is lower. Breaks, take breaks yourself if there's a lot going on in your family, with yourself, with your kids. Get some downtime, get some respite time. It's the way you kind of have the resilience to keep going. It's a big deal. Okay, now here's our first time. Do I have to point at this to make it work? I like that. Okay, very brief outline. Talk about, challenges aren't always bad. Stress isn't always bad. However, the reason we're here is because it is disruptive. It messes up how we feel, how we function. And so that's why we're doing that. I want to talk just a little bit about what stress does physiologically, both on a neuron level, which is all those brain pathways, what goes on there, because we want to emphasize some parts of brain pathways and not others. So that's what that's one of the few little keys I want to try and leave you with tonight. Stress and hormones, they can wear you out if you're too stressed up. The Kindle myelinate, that has to do with the neurons, we're going to show you in a second. I'll touch on a little bit about therapy and medication. Been doing this a long time. I have quite a bit of info on good use of medications, sometimes when not to. And maybe we'll talk a little about stress coping and health. Okay. The good side. Some very famous people, Yerkes Dodson came up with something a long time ago, which just talked about challenges, demands in the environment are there. If you apprise them as positive, then you're not stressed. You're busy, you might wear down, but you're feeling kind of good about it. They have this kind of little chart here, which talks about how you apprise a situation. If your skills are really strong and your stress is really low, if you're the best soccer player in the community and you're playing against your elementary school kids, your skills are strong, your stress is probably down, you're not stressed, everything, you're probably bored. Right? If you're playing against similarly matched people in the community, you're playing soccer against people with a lot of skills, then your skills are high, your demand is high, but you're probably feeling kind of good. When your skills are weak and the demands and the stress is high, you feel overwhelmed. So kind of some simple things, but when you try and help your kids deal with stress, you want to have some simple models to break things down and see what to do. So obviously with this kind of a thing, you would probably want to reduce the stresses. You talk to your teacher about not having to turn in the homework every night or something like that if it's a demand issue. You want to increase their coping skills, that type of stuff. Okay. There's a term called hardiness. It's an old one, but it's not what we want for ourselves, for our kids. It just says that when you encounter difficult situations, you approach it with an approach that it kind of can do. I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to do well. Okay. This is just kind of a little, picture, but it actually is kind of representative of one of the other most basic things you all do with stressful situations. Your kids do it. I'm sure you talk to your kids about it. But it's funny, there's a lot of times I talk with students and they kind of know this stuff, but they don't actually put into practice. And it's one of these things that can help a lot. It says, it doesn't quite say this, but what I'm trying to show is you have a goal. You have to get through a research assignment in history or something. You make a plan. You break that overwhelming thing down into pieces, right? It's like a lot of my kids, a lot of my students stress on, I have so much to do. If it's work or something in my family, it's overwhelming. The key is always one of the keys frequently is to break it down into manageable pieces. You can't worry about the entire history assignment. You can't worry entirely about how you're going to win back the affection of your family after you messed up a lot, all in one day. You have to break it down. And now it becomes more manageable. The stress comes down. You walk up the steps, and all of a sudden you eventually get to your goal, at least hopefully, with less stress getting there. It feels more doable. We want to take these challenges and make them feel doable. However, we're here because stress doesn't make us feel good, and a lot of times it causes a lot of problems. A lot of times people tell you, your kids will tell you, I'm stressed out, I'm unhappy, right? Sometimes, but it's mind, body, and soul is that thing that just fell down, said. And so sometimes you notice it because of their behavior, right? They've been good all weekend, now it's Sunday night and they're starting to get stomach aches again. Or the way they deal with stress is they get angry. They get confrontational. And they may not tie it all together. You're going to pick up, gee, every time, you get worried about stuff, you seem to start getting argumentative. You can start putting those patterns together and help them understand how it all goes together. We really do believe this. It's mind, body, emotions, and behavior. If you're, we're kind of talking all about them together, but if you're trying to help somebody who's stressed out, you try and talk about each of these things because they may or may not cover them all individually. So obviously your emotions are uptight, you don't feel good, your thinking starts going that way, your body starts stressing out, and then you can have some problematic behaviors. This is partly why medications can be effective, is because if all these things affect each other, medications, unless you're taking Valium or Xanax, you're not going to feel good from your medicines. You just are supposed to feel normal. So if we right your body, we take your stressed out body, which is just really tense, and it just makes it function more normally, then your emotions are probably going to come down. You might be able to think a little more clearly. You might have a little bit more thoughtfulness in how you do your behaviors. So we try to work on all those areas, and when you're working with your children, you should think about each of these areas. Obviously, when stress comes up, it activates you. We're going to talk about that a little bit. The problem is when it goes on, it takes a toll. So we're going to do a little neurobiology, just in a brief thing. That's actually a nerve cell. And there's a term called myelination we're going to kind of talk about here. Myelination, I'm sure you guys all learned this in biology class in high school, if this is your nerve, it's just, myelination is this kind of fatty tissue that just wraps around the nerve more and more and more. What that does is it protects it, so it makes it strong, it makes it vulnerable. The other thing it really does, it makes the electrical connectivity go really fast. Hey, Good, I got that one right. Okay, good. Good student in biology there. So it makes things, it hardwires them faster. There's a term, things that fire together, wire together. The more you do something, the more likely that is to happen. The problem is that, I'm not this tall, if the middle nerve, this is not science, right? If the middle nerve is the stress reaction, and I want the signal to go that way because that's where thoughtfulness and calming and planning happen, I want to reinforce those nerves, that myelination to go that way. Because if the other side is them getting overwhelmed or panicky or angry, and that happens again and again and again, those nerves get more hardwired, and they're going to do it faster and more often. So we don't want the kids to repeatedly go through the negative experiences. We don't want to unconsciously aid that because it just makes it harder to fix, because partly becomes a physiological issue. Yeah, sure that works that way. Backwards. As a psychologist, you get out of all technical stuff. Nobody thinks you can do anything. Unfortunately, sometimes it's right. Okay. So that's just your nerve right there. And see all those thick things? That's just the myelination going in there. As I said, it just makes things go faster. We're not going backwards. We'll go forwards. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you something in a second. So kindling is kind of it's a useful term. The research is kind of like on and off about exactly how much is true. But the concept is useful, which is that if you keep running the same problem over and over again, a lot of times the threshold to have a reaction to it lowers. So if you think about anxiety, you might have something really horrible happen in the community. You want to stay away from that part of the neighborhood. Well, then maybe it eventually kind of gets where you don't want to leave the house. It takes fewer of those stimuli, fewer of the trauma to make that bad anxiety reaction happen. So that's a term they used to call kindling. So it just kind of comes down to we want to reinforce the right coping skills and not do the negative ones. And this is, I'm a clinical psychologist. I work a lot with families. I get a lot, obviously, with anxiety. Kids are, something now minor happens and they go into panic and they can't get to school. I have an A student frequently approaching towards graduation from high school. I shouldn't say frequently, but it happens at least once a year. And they've been doing great, but they're getting more and more uptight, and they can't, all of a sudden, this A student who's got high aspirations for colleges can't even come to school because the most minor stresses now overwhelm them. So I also deal with a lot of angry kids. And so here's the sort of thing we want to do. We want to teach the right skills. They don't hardwire the wrong ones. But we also have to watch what we do. Angry kids evoke angry responses. Anger is very stimulating. It wires all that stuff really hard. So we want to kind of avoid the reaction that will give us the wrong kind of, in this case, physiological training. If we give a lot of angry reactions to angry kids, we're really kind of giving them their adrenaline rush, and we're kind of sensitizing them to have more angry reactions, not less. So you want to be calm and clear. And I had kids, I'm not perfect, but we want to try and emphasize what we want. That's one of the things I want you to walk away with. So what does stress do to us? It's basically, it's that fight or flight thing. Something happens and your adrenaline rushes and you're ready to fight the tiger or run away from the tiger. So what happens is you get a couple of things. There's a lot of stuff that happens. This is very simplified. But adrenaline, it makes your muscles, have energy. It shrinks up your ability to digest food because we don't want to waste, energy there. We want to go to the muscles. Going to give your blood pressure a boost. Cortisol gives you more sugar, more energy, stuff like that. And it's just one of the hormones that just gets activated. Cortisol gets kind of a bad rap, but it does all these important things. It keeps inflammation down, all these things. It helps with blood pressure, all those sorts of issues. It's a good thing to have, but the point's going to be if you wear down, eventually this stuff is going to kind of make you feel worn out. It's going to affect, again, your mood, your physical health, all those sorts of things, which are not good. So we don't want stress to become chronic. We want to deal with it as it's coming along. I'm kind of zipping through this part. And anyway, I've already said it enough times. Okay, another way just to phrase it, there's some of this old term as a general adaptation syndrome. And it just says you can have an alarm reaction, which is initially you have to kind of be ready to deal with something, then you deal with it. And then it's supposed to kind of get over, your body needs to, in the resistance phase, go back to normal. Because if you don't, then you get exhausted. So here's one of the other things I want to say. This is I deal with a lot of families. If your child's sick, you're not, you might take time off work. You might stay up late. You're not going to go to the gym. You're going to stress yourself out to take care of your child. And that's fine. And then the issue's over and you're okay again. If you're in a stressful situation where the issue is chronic, you are chronically stressed, your child's chronically stressed, you have to go back to a more normal lifestyle because you can't persist in this acute stress phase forever. You're going to wear out. And while I do a lot of families where they don't work out anymore, the couple doesn't go out to dinner because they're just trying to be so available to somehow take care of their kid, take care of their needs, but they're not doing it with their own well-being. So you can't live like life in a chronic stressful situation. Okay, and that just says more of the same stuff. Resistant stage. Because eventually you hit the point you get tired, depressed, and you feel like you can't cope. Okay, so I just have a couple minutes. So what do you do? Okay, so here's a good phrase. I like this one. Adults shouldn't substitute coffee for sleep. My wife would be shocked to think I know that phrase. Yeah, did that a lot of times. But it's not good. But similarly, so what do? You have a stressed out person. We're going to talk about coping skills. We're going to talk about how you cope, how your kids cope. Medication might be something relevant, but we don't give it, hopefully, without treating the problem completely. So we don't want to just medicate if your child needs to learn some skills, right? So I like this lady's approach, Dr. Cummings. She's a psychopharmacologist. She says, not everything in life is a chemical imbalance. I deal with lots of people on medication. I'm very pro it. They need it. They should take it. It's a great thing. But if you have environmental stresses, you need to think about what you're doing, what you're learning, what skills you're doing, how you're reducing the environmental stresses. So if the levels are mild, she says she uses a lot of psychotherapy and lifestyle changes to deal with that. Actually, there's a slide, I think it's the next one. She just says medication use is going up and therapy is going down. They should probably still be kind of more hand in hand. And then the last, that's where that says that. And so if the person's depressed about things in their life, environmental issues, then we should probably try and help them understand that you will find another boyfriend or girlfriend after the breakup, that you can get through history, that you can accomplish these things. If it's about their weight, their job, their relationship, you should learn some skills. If it's your body's coming apart, that's especially when the medications are useful to look at. So, so that would be definitely a time to consider that you might consider some medication. It does kind of right your system. As we said, the body helps the mind, helps the behavior, helps the thinking. And I think that's going to be it because my time is going to be up. I think I want to say one last thing. Whoops, now I can't go backwards, so it won't matter. One of the many ways you can decide about your stress or what coping is, if it's a problem that can be solved, then you should focus on problem-solving coping. Right? If it's something that if you attack the problem, you can break it down in pieces, you can solve it. That's one mental approach you should be thinking of help your kids with. If it's a thing you have to survive, something bad happened you can't undo, it's the breakup of the relationship. If you're worried about an exam coming up, then it's a different set of coping skills for how to just get through emotional stuff. Mindfulness is a term you guys may have heard a lot about if you're dealing with mental health stuff, if you're reading about things on the internet. The internet actually has lots of good coping skills. You can type in the types of problems and then see, if you go to multiple websites, a lot of times you'll see the same sorts of approaches to the similar problems. So you want to try and keep it simple, kind of have an idea of what you're trying to work with, is how you manage it, break it down into a piece, and go from there. And then call us if you need help.
My stress levels are off the charts. I'm doing all those things that Joe just said not to do. But I want to say that my presentation is really about parents, and it's about you. I am a parent. I raised 2 girls. They gave me gray hair and heart attacks and all the things that your kids may be causing for you. So we are in this struggle together. It's not just you. And the title, Grace Under Fire, is a military term, right? Was originated in the military for having presence of mind and clearness of decision making, even when under enemy fire. And of course, our children are not our enemies, but it can feel at times that we're in a battle. And if not a battle with our children, it can certainly feel that we're battling negative forces in our world, in our community and in our world, and battling them on behalf of our children. So I want to hear from you. What are some of the ways that you feel parenting, why is it so difficult in 2019? What's happening? Why has parenting gotten this hard? So if you're courageous enough,
For sure the internet. For sure
the internet, exactly.
social media.
Yes.
Social media.
Pardon?
Absolutely social media.
Absolutely social media. It exaggerates everything, right? Also the exposure. Our kids are exposed to more things than any generation ever has been exposed to, and at earlier ages. The statistics are alarming about access to porn. I know it, I think average age is 11. So yes, anything else? Internet for sure.
Like their peers, so there's different groups around that they kind of have experiences with that they know not to go that way and kind of change their peers to different groups. Like we've kind of gone through those battles and like seen the ups and downs, like what's good and what's not. So
Yes.
It's really important.
Peers are so important, and parents don't always have the inside track on the influence of peers or who the peers are. It's not as tight-knit a community as it used to be, right? It used to be in small towns, you would know all the kids and their parents that your children were with, and that's no longer true. So what are the other issues that make parenting difficult?
We're too busy. We're too busy. Parents are too busy.
Yes, parents are exhausted, right? Parents are working hard. Parents are juggling all kinds of responsibilities. And sometimes we're parenting or helping with homework or trying to discipline at the very end of our days when we have the least amount of resources and energy. Anything else that you want to throw out there? Yes.
Other parents.
Yes.
How like, oh, well, I would never let my kid do that kind of stuff. Oh,
Yes.
you would discipline your child that way? How could you?
Yes. I'm going to tell a story later on in my presentation about me experiencing that kind of peer pressure from other parents. We feel judged, right? We could feel judged by family, judged by teachers, judged by administration. As parents, there's our product walking around kind of proving or making us insecure about our skills sometimes, right? Because we don't have the remote control for our kids. And so in judging one another, it's not helpful, yes. And at the same time, it's a dichotomy. At the same time, we want our children primarily with other people that have good values, right? So that's the dichotomy of that, of course. So with all of these stressors, some of them, you know, fairly recent in society, some of them as old as parenting itself, how do we keep our calm and cool? How, when people are pushing our triggers, when our children are pushing our triggers, how do we remain calm? And why is it so critically important? And Dr. Whalen answered some of the why it's so critically important for us to stay calm. And I'm going to kind of personalize that information a little bit. This is an outline of what I'm going to talk about very quickly. And as I said, I'm focusing more on parent self-care and taking care of ourselves as parents. Because truly, taking care of ourselves, monitoring our own emotions, is the way to help our kids. We are modeling for them all the time, even when they act like they're not holding you as their role model. So I was inspired for my presentation, and some of my materials were directly taken from Sarah Trubridge, who's a national speaker and an educator on the topic of childhood resiliency, and particularly resiliency, building resiliency in children in the school setting. And resiliency is nothing more really than having setbacks in life, getting knocked down, and the ability to get back up and carry on and do well. So she has a lot of materials in here, and Kelly Pemberton, who is the program specialist for the Robles school districts, she's a very good friend of mine. And they brilliantly got together for the Robles school district, and over many, many days presented a presentation on social emotional learning. And I was so struck, and they were generous enough to share it with me so I could read it. And I was so struck with the piece on self-care for educators. And I presented some of that to the staff at Spinelli. But then I thought, and thanks to Ryan with his idea about parent education, I thought I needed this as a parent. I still need this as a parent, and I want to bring it to our parents. Because this is a difficult time to be parenting. I don't think anyone would argue that point. So this is a little film clip that will explain trauma in an easy to understand way. And the target audience for this was teachers. But when I presented it to staff, I said, I want you to not just apply this information to your students. I want us to put ourselves in that place. Because how we were parented, our childhood history with trauma, does impact our parenting. So when you watch this, I don't want you to only think about your children. I truly want you to think about yourselves.
Hey, welcome back. Today, I really wanted to think about what's the best way to teach teachers about trauma without getting them distracted with all the technical stuff, and what's the most important thing for them to understand and learn. And I thought that the best way to do it might be to just make a difference between a learning brain versus a brain in survival mode. So we'll just call it learning brain versus survival brain. And this is the difference. So learning brain is this brain that's open to learning new information, and it's completely okay with ambiguity and grays and vagueness, and it sees the big picture. It like pulls back and is on the balcony, can look over the forest and figure out what's going on. On an emotional level, people in learning brain feel calm, peaceful, maybe a little excited about what they're about to learn, maybe a little playful and having fun too, and definitely curious. And they're not afraid of making mistakes because it's just part of the learning process. And so they're not really thinking about themselves. And they actually feel a little bit of confidence that if they just apply themselves, they might pick up what they're trying to learn. Now, survival brain, on the other hand, is completely different. It's hyper-focused on threat. It doesn't like ambiguity. It wants clear, hard facts. It thinks in black and white terms. It doesn't want anything to be gray at all. And then emotionally, you can imagine that survival brain makes people feel panicky, feel like a little obsessive and afraid of getting things wrong. And they don't feel calm and open to learning new things. They just want to get things over with. And people in survival brain also really don't like making mistakes, and they are afraid of looking stupid too. So students in survival brain don't want to be picked on. They don't want to raise their hand and ask questions and look stupid. And so these people are also filled with doubt about their own ability to learn stuff, and they're afraid that other people can see how stupid they really are. Now, it's really important to understand how learning brain and survival brain interact, because survival brain always trumps learning brain. And it makes sense, because survival brain is just trying to save your life. And so if it thinks that there's something dangerous happening, you better pay attention to it, right? But the tricky thing is that as survival brain stays on longer and longer, it's harder to get out of that. and it's harder to really go into a learning brain. And the way I think about it is kind of like the myth of Sisyphus. You know that guy who has to push a rock up a hill, and then every day it falls back down and he has to do it over and over again? Well, being in learning brain is like being up on the high parts of that mountain. You can see the expanse of what's going on, but it also takes a lot of work to be up there. And at any second, if you're not paying attention and putting effort into it, it's so easy to slip back into survival brain again. And that rock that Sisyphus is trying to push up, well, that's kind of like stress. And the more stressed you feel, the heavier and bigger that rock gets, and it just pushes you back into survival brain quicker. Now the kicker is that for traumatized people, stress is a really rigid and intense thing. And so with trauma, any little stress makes that rock grow way bigger than it normally would. And because people with trauma misperceive ambiguous situations as threatening and stressful, that rock just stays big all the time. Now the good news is that the more you control stress, well, the easier it is to be in learning brain, right? Because that rock is a lot smaller. And what I really want to highlight for teachers is that the best way to keep students in learning brain goes back to why I spent so much time talking about attachment. Students best learn when they feel like they're safe and supported by the adults around them. So it's kind of like a baby elephant. You know how like on those nature shows, the baby elephant is like playing with leaves or exploring a tree or something like that and having a lot of fun. And the only reason why they can do that is because there's a whole group of mama elephants around that baby protecting it and looking out for danger. So a kid with trauma or who's stuck in survival brain, it's kind of like that baby elephant who doesn't have protective adults around them. They can't play and learn because they're way too focused looking out for threat and danger. So this is why I really believe that the most important thing that schools need to focus on, way more important than any kind of techniques or curricula, is really whether or not they are creating that environment where students feel like they're surrounded by these big mama elephants who are going to protect them and watch out for them and make them safe. And when students have that, I bet you it unlocks their curiosity, their eagerness to learn, and play as a way to learn. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thanks.
So the analogy about the baby elephant being protected by these protective adults, and because of that protection, allowed to develop in a healthy way. If we look at that same thing as adults, that larger community as parents, we need to have that comfort and access in working with our kids. And if we feel threatened, we don't feel safe, we don't feel accepted and connected within our community, we don't have that feeling of being protected by those other elephants as well. And that is why in your folders, and I'll mention this again, but there's a list of 40 developmental assets. One side is for younger kids, the other side is for older kids, but it talks about internal and external assets. And those community assets, supporting one another, as you brought up, that critical attitude towards one another isn't helpful, because parenting is this hard. And truly, parents and teachers and school staff need to be working together. Absolutely. I think it's, yes. Oh, yours is not double-sided? Okay, then. If you Google 40 developmental assets, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but if you Google 40 developmental assets by the Search Institute, all kinds of good things will pop up. And there's many, it's a kind of a map. The 40 developmental assets is actually a map and shows you where we're headed. These are the ideals that we want to reach for, community-wise and individually in our families and with our children. So I'm going to talk for just a second about mirror neurons and co-regulating. So the theory is that we have, the neuroscience indicates that we have mirror neurons that help us mirror and actually sometimes physically experience the emotions of the people we're with. And this is to help us because people are hardwired for connection, so it helps us build relationships. However, sometimes if we are not self-regulating our emotions and we are so connected to our kids and we care about them so much, we are going to be mirroring their escalation. And we need to watch out for that. In the movie Inside Out by Disney, raise your hand just really quick if you saw it so I know if you know what I'm talking about. Brilliant movie. If you haven't seen it, it's animation, but it's wonderful. And in that movie, the little girl, Riley, has been traumatized by a move to a new area. Oh, I've got 5 minutes left. I'm going to talk fast. So she cops a huge attitude with her dad because she's traumatized. She's upset. She's scared. Her whole world has been ripped apart from her. So she's given her dad a lot of attitude. He's not seeing all the fear, the anxiety, the sadness, right? So he mirrors her escalation. And together, they have a very combustible moment in the movie, which is brilliant because this happens in real life, right? And I wanted to tell a story about my daughter when she was in 4th grade. She was very impulsive, had a very difficult time with social cueing, was having a hard time making friends, so I enrolled her in Girl Scouts. And I thought, oh, this is great. You know, she'll have another chance to make friends. I get a call from the Girl Scout leaders telling me that she's acting out, she ran in the bathroom, she ran away from the leaders, and I was at a vulnerable place. I was not practicing self-regulation of my emotions. I was feeling in deficit mode myself, not practicing self-care, deficient in sleep, not having enough adults in my life that I was connecting with to support me, and I just had a meltdown. And I have a visual memory of myself at the top of the stairs, sobbing in front of my 4th grader. This is from one phone call from a Girl Scout leader, and saying, "You just have to be good." And of course, the message she received is, "I can't tell you anything anymore. You are not an emotionally safe person to deal with for me." So I didn't get to hear that she was being bullied by the other girls in the troop. And not physically bullied, but relationally bullied. Because their moms were all friends, and they were having parties, etc., talking about it in front of her, so it exaggerated her feelings of getting left out. I didn't get to hear that because my emotions were taking up all the oxygen in the room, right? So I tell you that story because we're all there sometimes, where our kids are having problems, and because we love them so much, we are prone to escalate. If we had childhood trauma ourselves, that's even more difficult. And we have to do our own personal work to regulate. And even more important that we practice self-care if we've had our own childhood trauma. So there was a huge study done by Kaiser Permanente, 1995 to 1997, 17,500 people, and they were employees of Kaiser. So this wasn't considered a high-risk group. And they found that over, 60%, it was like 60% of these people had one adverse childhood experience, and 15+% of the people had more than 4 adverse childhood experiences. There was a direct correlation between outcomes in physical and mental health with how many adverse childhood experiences you had. So physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, living away from biological parents. There was a whole long list of things that could go wrong, right? So these things are more and more common in our society, and they are directly related to our physical and emotional health. Managing our stress, taking care of our health, considering how valuable we are personally to our families, to our community. This is critical, absolutely critical. And parenting is about modeling these healthy habits. So anyway, you probably are familiar with signs of stress within yourself, but you want to get very good at recognizing the signs of stress within yourself. In your handouts, there is a handout for ways to alleviate stress, small ways and big ways. That's the handout, yes. I just wanted to say that the disruption of worldview, when you get to a point where you are doubting your self-worth or your ability to parent or your wisdom or your love that you're giving, you know you need to do some serious self-care. Because that worldview, you feeling connected, you feeling important, you will be translating that to your child. So do pay attention to that. Give yourself a break. I did have my sign. I have an elementary background, so here we go with body, mind, and spirit. I think I dropped my mic. Thank you, Ryan. Anyway, you want to make a plan, and if you make one change, one healthy change, it could have a halo effect. So take a walk, drink more water, start exercising. Anything you're doing for your body is also modeling that for your child. Mind, what kind of media are you watching? What kind of media comes into your home? What kind of books, what kind of magazine? You want to make sure that you are balancing it. And you can see that, and spirit, by spirit, I'm not talking about religion. I'm just talking about what nurtures your spirit. So connecting with other people, if you have a way of worshiping, doing that, going out in nature. But as you can see, when these things are in balance, it creates a peace sign. And this is something I do with kids. You matter. I quickly will finish up with the grace under fire idea. I wish all of you grace as you deal with your unique form of fire, whatever it is that you're dealing with that are your life challenges. But I want you to know that you're not alone, that we do support you. We want to be available to support one another. And, you know, we're all on this journey together. So thank you very much.
So I'm going to be talking about 2 specific tools that you can take home with you to use with your families that I've been using in schools for the last 6 to 8 years, and the students that I work with really respond to them and they love them. One has to do with mindsets, the other one has to do with mindfulness, and they both build on self-esteem and stress management skills simultaneously in a really powerful way. So I'm going to start off talking about the mindset, specifically growth mindset, and there are a lot of materials in your folder to take home dealing with the growth mindset. Growth mindset is a way of looking at learning in an empowered way where failures are seen as a natural part of the learning process. So you're training your child to see failure as just a part of it, and it's a sign that they're learning and growing, and it's actually a success, rather than being afraid of making mistakes and feeling disempowered by that. It also views the brain as a muscle that can grow. So if you're not, very talented at math, you're not talented at math yet. So it's this whole concept of the power of yet, and by working harder, you can get good at math. It's just that right now you may be struggling with it. So what is a growth mindset? We used to believe that our intelligence and talents were fixed, meaning you were whether born smart or not. Researcher Carol Dweck, among others, has discovered this isn't true. Our brains are muscles that can grow and be developed over our entire lives. Through effort, perseverance, and grit, we can learn it more quickly and strengthen our brains. Growth mindset views all human qualities, including skills and personality characteristics. So we're not just talking about academic skills, we're also talking about other life skills and personality as something that can be developed or fostered through awareness, once again, hard work, perseverance, determination, struggle, learning, and practice. So we fall into 2 types of mindsets, all of us. It's either fixed or growth. So in the schools, a lot of teachers are now using growth mindset to get the students out of the fixed mindset and into the growth mindset. And you can also coach your child at home on how to transfer to this new mindset if you're noticing that he or she is in the fixed. Children with a fixed mindset believe that their own intelligence and talent are innate traits that don't change. Children with the growth mindset believe the ability can change as a result of, once again, effort, perseverance, and practice. Mindset affects all kids regardless of achievement level. Differences in mindset can lead to achievement gaps in grades, test scores, class behavior, and other student outcomes that last for years. And so here we see more specific examples of what it looks like to be in one mindset or the other, in case you're trying to figure out maybe where you are or some certain family members are. Fixed mindset would think, I just can't learn math, I'm not good at it, whereas growth would think, math is hard, but if I keep trying, I can get better at it. So these are a bunch of different examples of how the different mindsets differentiate. Fixed believe intelligence is something you're born with. Growth believes intelligence is the result of effort, continued work. Fixed mindset is there's a desire to look smart and avoid looking dumb. So that's where the children really miss out because they avoid taking risks. And they're really caught up in like the fear of shame, right? Oh, if I get it wrong and I don't want to ask a question because what if it's a stupid question and whatnot? And that gets a lot of students stuck and prevents them from learning. Whereas a child with a growth mindset has a desire to learn even if it takes effort. So they see hard work as a good thing because they know that their brain is growing when they're working hard. They're not looking for the easy way out, they're looking for the harder experience because they're so bought into this whole concept that my brain grows every time I push it and I challenge it. So anyways, other examples here, they see, fixed mindset sees challenges as threatening. They ignore criticism. They feel threatened when others are successful. Whereas growth mindset, they learn from criticism. They know that's a part of the learning process. They're not afraid of it. They find inspiration in other people's success rather than being threatened by it. So here are more specific things you can do as a parent in the home setting to help your child embrace that growth mindset. There are a few flyers in the folder with even more steps for you if you really like this concept. So embracing failures and mistakes, understanding the role of emotion in learning. So when you see your child getting caught up in the frustration of a mistake, being able to kind of hold that experience with them and name the feeling. Like, I see you're really frustrated right now because you've been working on this for a long time and you still don't understand it. Celebrate the success of others rather than feeling threatened. And then once again, the power of yet. You can kind of make that like a family mantra, like whenever somebody feels like they're not successful at something or something's really difficult, saying like, I don't understand this yet. And so a lot of classrooms at school, like the children will chime in when they see a kid kind of beating themselves up, like, this is, I just can't get it. And the other kid will be like, yet. And then little by little, they really start to pick up that whole new reframe. And this is the way that it's impacting learners in the school setting. So studies show that students with a growth mindset are more motivated, engaged, even when the work's challenging, more likely to review or revise their work, score better on math and verbal standardized tests, fail fewer classes and have higher GPAs, are more likely to persist in high school and college. It's also a way of kind of practicing the self-compassion piece, which is building on their self-esteem and their relationship to themselves. And then here are just some more specific ways of ways that you can kind of coach your child. So if you're, instead of saying you're so smart, you would say, I can see you worked so hard on that. So you're really focused on effort versus the product. So it's all about getting them to to show that they're putting a lot of effort into it, regardless of the outcome. Yeah.
Sorry, are those in this handout somewhere too?
No. So you could take a picture maybe if you want. Instead of saying it's okay, maybe you're just not cut out for this, you would say, it seems like it's time to try a new strategy. This lets your children know they control outcomes by making choices. Instead of saying, you're a natural at that, you would say, I like watching you do that. Saying this conveys a message of approval of an activity they enjoy regardless of outcome. Instead of saying, that's right, you did that so quickly and easily, you would say, it looks like that was too easy for you. Let's find something that challenges your brain so it can grow. This teaches kids that learning should be challenging, and if tasks are too easy, then your brain isn't growing. Instead of saying, that's not right, are you paying attention in class? It seems like you're not even trying. You would say, that's not right, you don't understand this yet. What strategies can you try to understand it better? It's important to be honest about what your child does and doesn't understand, but also explain that you believe in their capacity to improve. And then the last one, instead of saying, that was really hard, I'm so glad it's over, you don't have to do that ever again. You would say, that was really hard, your effort is paid off, next time you'll be ready for this kind of challenge. This reminds children of how they are able to overcome challenges by putting forth a lot of effort, cultivates a growth mindset. All right, so now we're going to move into the second tool, which is called Mindfulness. This is really taking off all over the country right now. I don't know if any of you have heard about Goldie Hawn. She donated millions of dollars after 9/11 to create an entire curriculum on mindfulness so that teachers could bring it into the classroom as a stress reduction strategy for children who had PTSD as a result of 9/11. And now it's just taken off. So there's districts who are using it all over the country, what's called Mind Up. And that's a research-based curriculum that uses mindfulness to improve behavior and learning. And I use it in my counseling groups. So pretty much what mindfulness is just being totally present in the moment in a non-judgmental way. So just like connecting to your breath or one of your 5 senses. So you could do mindful tasting, mindful listening, mindful smelling. There's many different ones, or mindful breathing. And the key part is that it's non-judgmental. So you're not like evaluating your experience or how well you're doing at it. You're just kind of observing and in awareness. And it's been linked with multiple indicators of well-being. Mindfulness can be fostered via practice. So for some families that really like this idea, you could use like YouTube or an app to guide you in a mindfulness practice at home. And so there's a book written about it called Happy Teachers Change the World on how teachers can bring in mindfulness. So they're called brain breaks now in the classroom, where teachers will use a chime and the kids just kind of connect to their breath for like a quick minute or so. And an increasing number of brain imaging and MRI studies are suggesting that mindfulness meditation reliably and profoundly alters the structure and function of the brain to improve the quality of both thought and feeling. It reshapes vital neural pathways, increasing the density and complexity of connections in areas associated with cognitive abilities such as attention, self-awareness, introspection, and with emotional areas connected with kindness, compassion, and rationality. Mindfulness practices of just a few weeks have shown clear and visible impacts on brain function and performance. So I've gotten a lot of feedback from the students that I work with about how it's impacting them. Like a lot of them now practice it at home on their own, or maybe they've invited family members. I had one student who is like has really severe challenges, behavioral challenges. He says that that's how he falls asleep at night now, is with his mindful breathing. He was very proud of that. He wanted me to tell his entire class. So this is the singing bowl, and it's just a way to practice mindful listening. So that's one of the 5 senses, one of the types of mindfulness that you can practice. And you can find them on Amazon or a lot of different websites if you Google it. So I thought we could try out the mindfulness just to see how you like it, if you want to practice this at home with your families. It's just a nice way to kind of take a time out, since a lot of us are just so busy, right? And we're kind of like overdoing more than ever nowadays. And now with the cell phones, it's like we're so overstimulated and constantly going, it can be really hard to stop. And then stopping can feel like we're doing something wrong or feel guilty about resting. So it's a really good way just to like take a brain break, as the teachers call it. And it gives you a lot of energy to kind of continue on with your day. So I don't know if we can hit a light possibly, or both, maybe just like one light. Usually we turn off the lights in the classroom. It's just a little easier. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes. It's totally up to you, or look down. I have the students kind of like check in with their breath, just feeling their breath, a hand on their chest if they want, on their stomach. And I'll just ring the singing bowl and kind of guide us what we call a mindful moment, which is just like taking a minute to rest our mind. So. moment to drop into your breath. Maybe noticing the speed of your breath. Noticing maybe it's slowing down as you're checking in. If you have any thoughts, just observing them and letting them go, coming back to the breath. Just coming back to this moment. And on the third ring, we'll open our eyes. Just enjoying the sound of the singing bowl. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. So a lot of the students are fascinated by that. They're like, wow, I've never checked in with my breath. And I tell them, you're constantly breathing since the moment you were born, and this may be the first time you stopped to even acknowledge that. So it's kind of groundbreaking for some of them. And now we're going to wrap up. I have 1 minute left. These are the benefits of mindfulness. Increases self-esteem, energy levels, improves social skills, communication skills, capacity for compassion and empathy. Improves concentration, work memory, organizational skills, problem solving, reasoning skills, cognitive performance skills, overall executive functioning. Improves self-control, increases calmness, peace, improves sleep, reduces depression, anxiety, stress, and reactivity. And then for the last one, this is just a testimony of one child who shared what it had done for her. One child shared she felt that mindfulness had helped her to get to know herself better, understand that she had many emotions and that was okay. She ended by saying that she had learned to be kinder to herself. So it's kind of going back to the whole theme of like the self-compassion, leading to the self-esteem, right, which is a benefit in many realms of our lives. So that's it.
How long would it take to learn that, and how would you teach it?
To learn mindfulness?
Yeah. Teach you if you want to learn it at home, how long would it take?
So if you use an app or YouTube, you don't have to learn it, you just hit play. That's one end of the pendulum, easiest way. And then if you really were passionate about this, you could take a class for parents, there's courses you can take if you really want to bring home the practice in a more powerful way. And there's classes for the children. I have a private practice, so I'll leave my business card in the back if you'd be interested in working with me. I work with children, teens, parents, parent support groups, and then families as a whole. So yeah, I would say you could probably learn a lot on the internet too. Like if you just researched like mindfulness practice as a family, right? There's probably a lot up there. And if I should have given you guys a list of books for those of you who would be interested in reading more about this and how to bring that home through a book. On my card, you can just email me or call me. If you're only interested in resources, that's fine too. You can contact me and I can give you some more resources on that. I know for me personally, since I started a mindfulness practice, it's had a big benefit, and the students notice it too. Because when I'm practicing, they are much better behaved. And when I'm not as grounded, and then they react very differently to me, so.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you.